What an up and down start it has been for a lot of AFL teams. One week, your club can look like they are running on air, and then all of a sudden, when you least expect it, they look like they are running knee deep in mud. Now this has happened in most recent seasons due to the pretty competitive nature in the AFL. At round 3, Collingwood almost looked done, and now they are firmly in the premiership hunt again, while Fremantle look to have found a new identity before losing in an embarrassing derby performance to West Coast. 1-2 team storyline best shows this. Before we continue on, just letting you guys know the channel has a new podcast. Trust Your Eyes is a rapid fire debate show about the latest AFL news and results. It only goes for about 10 to 15 minutes with episodes weekly as we pick 7 topics to discuss in each show, all with a time limit. It's on the channel in the podcast tab, while also on Spotify, free to listen to anytime with the link in the description. Please check it out and I hope you enjoy it. Now let's get back to the video. We skip forward to round 4 and the gather round Friday night matchup between Port Adelaide and Essendon. Port were heavy favourites, but the Bombers were expected to put up a fight on the road. They did, but only for a quarter. For the next 3, the total goals scored were 13-3. They won't be the only side in 2024 that gets punished by a dynamic power midfield at the Adelaide Oval. But for the next week, all that was on the radio, TV or papers was about Essendon. Where was this so-called edge? And was this season going to be the same as all the others? Remember, this was after 1 week and a loss away from home to a very good team. Well, round 5 saw Essendon and the Western Bulldogs meet in front of 50,000 at Marvel Stadium. For the first 2 quarters, it was close, but the commentary on Channel 7 was so lopsided against the Bombers, you would have thought the Bulldogs were winning by 5 or 6 goals. All they talked about was how will Essendon respond and what they needed to do when the Bulldogs got any bit of momentum. Well, 7-3 in the second half shut down any more talk. The midfield won convincingly with Sam Durham and Zach Merritt starring. Even without a couple best 22 players, Essendon responded. 1 week they looked terrible and the next they looked fantastic. So we move a week later. Now all the attention was on guess who? The Western Bulldogs.
2 weeks are enormous. They go from 2-4, what are they, 2-3, they go to 2-5, and then they got a massive 2 games against North Melbourne and Richmond. They wouldn't want to lose the next 2 games, Jared, and lose one of those next 2 after that.
Yeah. Everyone wanted to sack the coach. Everyone asked why players out of form who were previously stars weren't playing, and even Marcus Bontempelli was leaving at one point. Again, this was after 1 week and 1 poor performance against the fired up Essendon team. So on Thursday night against St Kilda, a team seen relatively equal with the Bulldogs, guess what happened? A comprehensive 60-point win in which every player contributed and previous stars got back into some form. Like Essendon, even without Jamara Ugle-Hagan and Tom Liberatore, they got the job done. And even with all the talk around the coach and club, they do sit 8th on the ladder after 6 rounds. This is just a micro example of how crazy inconsistent each week has been and how quickly you can be under pressure in the competition. I think there are a few reasons for this being a trend in 2024. Let's start with the vultures, aka the media. It's not necessarily their fault, as their job is to talk about football daily, so something a commentator would say on a Monday, they probably forget in about 3 days' time. But players and coaches must listen, because from the above examples, teams actually seem to respond. I don't know what it is, but whenever there is a serious pile-on from the media as a whole, AFL teams seem to play better. It proves they must listen to outside noise, no matter how much they deny they do. And it shows the motivational impact outside negativity can have. Now, coaches would never say this, but it's such an easy kickstarter to the week and an obvious starting point to build any us against them mentality for a game. The next point, which has really come about this season, is the travel. It was pointed out by Ross Lyon before and after the Bulldogs game that he did see signs of fatigue in the squad. To me, it is a fair enough reason to take on board. They played 11 games in just 3 days. This is AFL, not soccer or basketball, where games can be played every second or third day. St Kilda went from Adelaide in round 4 to Canberra in round 5 and then back at Marvel for their round 6 game. This doesn't just affect fatigue, but doesn't allow coaching staff to physically train what they want and try to improve on the field. This is the reality with more Thursday night games, which most people love. You can have these marquee games, but on the flip side, you have to deal with the increased amount of 5-day breaks and even some 4-day breaks. So if you take into account the above points, it basically summarises to you can't be 10% off your best in this competition and expect to cruise to wins. More than ever, there are so many variables week to week. If you are playing any team with a couple days more rest than you, then you better come fired up and ready. If that fatigue has you running at a bit less than your normal capacity, then you're in trouble. It's the same with the mental side of the sport. For example, the opposition you are playing has been getting killed in the media for the past few days, then again, you have to be ready to fight hard and scrap. There really aren't any walkover games during this lengthy season. The final point is more in-game. When you have those repeat inside 50s and can lock the ball in your forward half, then you have to capitalise. It's harder than ever to do this because of the huge number of players that do flood back inside 50. Each team has momentum at different points in the game, some for whole quarters and others for 5 or 10 minute patches. The best sides right now, like Geelong and Carlton, both capitalised with their momentum in round 6. Geelong repelled the attacks of Brisbane and counterpunched all night long, while the forward half power of the Blues put the scoreboard in their favour quickly against the Giants in the critical third quarter. It's obvious but important that when you feel like the game is on your terms, it really needs to look the same on the scoreboard, because in today's volatile game, the opposition is sure to get momentum and make a run of their own. All of this does make the game more exciting, but far more frustrating for fans of their clubs. Only a few sides can really be trusted to put up a solid game each week, while the other 14 or so seem to be in a battle of finding their best week to week. This goes both ways. If your club does have a bad performance one round, then it is far from the end of their finals hopes, while if your team plays lights out, don't expect a repeat effort, especially if they are playing interstate and off a short turnaround. The game professionally is hard enough, and these external factors are only making it more difficult to be a dominant and consistent team.